Before we begin, a quick and important disclaimer. This video is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute professional legal, financial, or tax advice. The economic data and historical trends discussed are based on publicly available research and case studies, which may not reflect every individual situation. Divorce laws and financial regulations vary significantly by jurisdiction. Viewers are strongly encouraged to conduct their own due diligence and consult with a licensed attorney or a certified financial planner before making any decisions regarding their personal or legal affairs. Every year in the United States, approximately 670,000 to 750,000 marriages end in dissolution. While the emotional toll of these breakups is often the focus of public discourse, there is a massive high-velocity engine humming beneath the surface of the American economy. It is an industry that thrives on the dismantling of the domestic unit, generating an estimated $50 billion in annual revenue. This is the divorce industrial complex. In the time it takes you to watch this introduction, dozens of couples will have clicked file on a digital portal or handed over a multi-thousand-dollar retainer to a high-rise law firm. We are no longer living in an era where divorce is merely a private family matter. It has become a sophisticated, multi-tiered sector of the economy that encompasses legal services, real estate, forensic accounting, specialized technology, and even boutique psychological services. This is not just about the end of a relationship. It is about the massive redistribution of wealth and the creation of a divorce now culture that prioritizes efficiency and transactional speed. Today, we are performing a deep dive masterclass into the economic footprint of this industry. We will peel back the curtain on how a single filing triggers a cascade of financial transactions that touch almost every corner of the U.S. market. We will explore why the cost of ending a marriage has outpaced inflation in many metropolitan areas, and how new tech platforms are trying to disrupt the traditional legal model. This series solves a critical problem for the modern American: the lack of transparency regarding the true cost of lifestyle deintegration. By the end of this deep dive, you will understand exactly how the money flows, who the hidden winners of this industry are, and the long-term historical trends that have turned the American divorce into one of the most profitable niche markets in the world. To understand the scale of this footprint, we must first look at the sheer density of the primary legal market. The American Bar Association notes that family law remains one of the most consistent and recession-proof sectors of legal practice. Unlike corporate law, which may fluctuate with the volatility of the stock market, or real estate law, which follows interest rate cycles, the divorce industry maintains a steady baseline. In many ways, the divorce now industry functions as a massive involuntary wealth redistribution event. When a household splits, the collective purchasing power of that unit does not simply divide in half. It often evaporates into the service sector. This is the efficiency loss of divorce. Two people living under one roof share a mortgage, a utility bill, and a grocery budget. When they separate, the economy gains a new consumer of housing, a new subscriber to utilities, and a new purchaser of household goods, but the individuals themselves often see a sharp decline in their net worth. Consider the initial entry point, the legal retainer. In major U.S. hubs like New York, Los Angeles, or Miami, a standard retainer for a contested divorce can range from $5,000 to $25,000 just to begin the process. This capital is often pulled directly from liquid savings, shifting money from consumer spending or long-term investments into the professional services sector. Historical trends show that as divorce becomes more normalized and accessible through Divorce Now services, the volume of these transactions increases, even if the individual cost per transaction fluctuates. This has led to the rise of unbundled legal services, where consumers can pay for specific tasks, like document review or a single court appearance, rather than a full-service attorney. While this sounds like a cost-saving measure, it has actually expanded the market by allowing those who previously could not afford legal help to enter the system, thereby increasing the total economic footprint of the industry. Beyond the attorneys, we have to look at the expert economy that supports the dissolution process. In high-net-worth cases, which represent a significant portion of the industry's revenue, the legal fees are just the beginning. Enter the forensic accountant. These professionals charge between $300 and $600 per hour to hunt for hidden assets, value closely held businesses, and analyze lifestyle spending to determine alimony. They are the detectives of the Divorce Now world. When you multiply those hourly rates across months of discovery and depositions, you begin to see how a single divorce can support an entire microeconomy of white-collar professionals. We also see the rise of the CDFA, or Certified Divorce Financial Analyst. This is a relatively new designation that emerged as a response to the complexity of modern assets like restricted stock units, cryptocurrency, and pension valuations. The growth of this profession is a direct indicator of how the divorce industry is becoming more specialized and more deeply integrated into the broader financial services sector. The ripple effect extends even further into the U.S. housing market. It is a historical trend that divorce is one of the leading drivers of forced real estate turnover. When a couple divorces, the family home, often their largest asset, is frequently sold to facilitate the equitable distribution of equity. This creates a surge in listing activity for real estate agents, commissions for brokers, and fees for title companies and inspectors. But the economic impact doesn't stop at the sale. That one household is now seeking two separate dwellings. In a tight housing market, this increased demand puts upward pressure on both rental prices and entry-level home prices. This phenomenon creates a paradoxical situation where the divorce now industry actually serves as a stimulator for the real estate sector, even as it depletes the individual wealth of the parties involved. We must also address the digital divorce revolution. In recent years, companies like Wevorse, Amicable, and various state-specific filing platforms have attempted to commodify the process. They market themselves on the promise of speed and low cost, targeting the millennial and Gen Z demographic that values digital-first solutions. This shift is significant because it represents the SaaSification, software as a service, of family law. These platforms use algorithms to help couples divide assets and calculate child support, moving the industry away from traditional billable hours and toward subscription or flat fee models. However, even as these platforms aim to lower individual costs, they are capturing a massive, previously untapped segment of the population that might have otherwise remained separated, but not legally divorced due to the high barrier of entry. By lowering the friction of filing, these tech companies are increasing the total velocity of the divorce now industry. As we move deeper into this masterclass, we will look at the secondary markets, the industries that catch the debris of a broken marriage. This includes moving companies, storage units, and even divorce registries where friends can buy household essentials for a newly single person. We will analyze the data on how credit scores typically move in the 2 years following a filing, and how the debt collection industry views divorce as a high-risk, high-reward event. The economic footprint is not just a footprint. It is a heavy, permanent impression on the American landscape. We are talking about a system that is designed to facilitate the end of a contract, but in doing so, it fuels a complex web of professionals, technologies, and market shifts that make it one of the most influential forces in the modern U.S. economy. This is the reality of the divorce now industry, a $50 billion machine that shows no signs of slowing down. To truly grasp the magnitude of this industry, we have to look past the courtroom doors and into the ledgers of the professionals who facilitate the breakdown of the American household. In 2026, the primary engine of this sector remains the billable hour, a concept that has evolved from a simple administrative tool into a high-precision extraction mechanism. When we talk about the legal footprint, we are not just talking about filing fees. We are talking about the massive industry of matrimonial litigation that has reached a level of specialization never seen before in U.S. history. Imagine a couple in Austin, Texas. Let us call them Mark and Jennifer. They represent the quintessential mid-tier wealth demographic that fuels this machine. Mark is a software architect and Jennifer is a marketing executive. Together, they have a combined household income of $300,000, a 4-bedroom home with $400,000 in equity, 2 luxury vehicles, and a diverse portfolio of 401ks, brokerage accounts, and a modest amount of cryptocurrency. On paper, their divorce should be a straightforward division of assets. However, historical trends suggest that the more assets a couple acquires, the more the divorce now industry expands to create new layers of oversight. Mark and Jennifer each hire a boutique family law firm. In 2026, the standard hourly rate for a partner-level attorney in a major metropolitan area ranges from $500 to $900. Before a single document is filed with the court, the industry has already captured $30,000 in the form of 2 $15,000 retainers. This capital is immediately moved from the family's liquid savings into the firm's trust accounts. This is the first significant economic shift. Capital that could have been used for a child's college fund or a diversified index fund is now fueling the professional services sector. But the attorneys are merely the tip of the spear. Once the litigation begins, we enter the phase of discovery. In the modern era, discovery has become a digital arms race. The Divorce Now industry has birthed a secondary market for forensic data analysts who specialize in matrimonial digital footprints. These experts are tasked with auditing every Venmo transaction, every hidden crypto wallet, and every deleted social media interaction over the last 5 years. These analysts often charge a flat fee or a high hourly rate, adding another $10,000 to $20,000 to the total cost of the split. The economic footprint widens even further when we consider the role of the forensic accountant. In our case study of Mark and Jennifer, Mark owns a small percentage of a startup. Determining the value of that equity for the purpose of a buyout requires a business valuation expert. This is not a simple calculation. It involves market analysis, revenue projections, and the application of complex discount rates for lack of marketability. Historical trends indicate that these valuation reports can cost anywhere from $7,000 to $15,000. The industry thrives on these complexities. Each disagreement between the parties regarding the value of an asset creates more billable work for the accountants and the lawyers, turning a private disagreement into a high-revenue professional event. Beyond the hard financial data, there is the rise of the divorce coach, a profession that has exploded in popularity in 2026. Unlike traditional therapists who focus on emotional healing over years, divorce coaches are tactical consultants. They charge $300 an hour to help individuals navigate the logistics of the process, from managing communications with an ex-partner to preparing for depositions. This is a billion-dollar subsector that did not exist in its current form a generation ago. It is part of the Divorce Now ethos, treating the end of a marriage like a corporate restructuring that requires a project manager. Then we must look at the infrastructure of the industry. The software as a service or SaaS platforms designed specifically for high-conflict or high-efficiency divorces. Take, for example, the widespread adoption of co-parenting communication apps. In many jurisdictions across the United States, judges now mandate the use of these platforms for all communication between separating parents. These apps charge subscription fees ranging from $100 to $300 per year per user. While it seems like a small amount, when multiplied by millions of active users, it represents a massive recurring revenue stream for tech companies. These platforms archive every message, every calendar update, and every reimbursement request, creating a permanent, court-admissible record. The economic genius of this model is its longevity. These are 18-year subscriptions that parents are legally compelled to maintain until their youngest child reaches adulthood. The ripple effect continues into the realm of private investigation. In the past, private investigators were used to catch physical infidelity. In 2026, the PI industry has pivoted toward asset protection and surveillance of lifestyle spending. If Jennifer claims she cannot afford to maintain the mortgage but is posting photos from a luxury retreat in Sedona, Mark's legal team might hire a digital investigator to track her geolocation data and spending habits. These investigators utilize sophisticated AI tools to scrape public and semi-public data, charging $5,000 retainers for a comprehensive lifestyle audit. When you add up these layers, the attorneys, the forensic accountants, the business valuation experts, the digital analysts, the divorce coaches, and the tech platforms, the economic leakage from Mark and Jennifer's household is staggering. Potential outcomes for a contested divorce of this nature show that between 15 and 25% of the total marital estate can be consumed by the Divorce Now industry. In our case study, that means Mark and Jennifer might pay over $200,000 to professionals just to decide how to split the remaining $1 million. This is money that is permanently removed from the family's generational wealth and injected into the service economy. This represents a fundamental shift in the American financial landscape. We are seeing the professionalization of domestic conflict. Every friction point in a relationship has been identified and monetized. If a couple cannot agree on a holiday schedule, there is an app for that. If they cannot agree on the value of a house, there is an appraiser and a forensic accountant for that. If they cannot speak to each other without arguing, there is a coach and a mediator for that. The industry has created a solution for every symptom of a failing marriage, but these solutions come with a high price tag that significantly alters the net worth of the American middle and upper middle class. We also have to consider the time value of money. A typical contested divorce in a crowded U.S. court system can take anywhere from 18 to 36 months to reach a final decree. During this period, assets are often frozen or underutilized. Investment portfolios may sit stagnant because neither party can agree on a rebalancing strategy. Real estate that should be sold remains in limbo, incurring maintenance costs and taxes. This opportunity cost is a hidden but massive part of the industry's economic footprint. The divorce now industry benefits from this duration. The longer the process drags on, the more professional fees are generated. As we look at the broader implications, we see that the industry is not just a passive recipient of divorce filings. It is an active participant in the economy that shapes how Americans view the institution of marriage itself. The availability of divorce now services has changed the calculus for many. When the process is marketed as efficient, digital, and streamlined, it lowers the psychological barrier to exit. However, the economic reality rarely matches the marketing. The complexity of the modern American life, with its blended finances, digital assets, and high-stakes real estate, ensures that the industry remains one of the most profitable sectors in the country. But what happens when the legal fees are paid and the final decree is signed? The economic impact is far from over. In fact, for many, the most devastating financial blow is yet to come. The industry has finished its work, but the individuals are left to navigate a world where their credit is shattered, their housing options are limited, and their tax status has fundamentally shifted. In the next part, we will explore the wreckage left behind in the credit and housing markets, and how a single signature can trigger a decade of financial rebuilding that the divorce now industry never warns you about. We will look at the specific historical trends of post-divorce credit scores and the predatory lending markets that target newly single individuals. The wreckage of a household dissolution is not just emotional. It is a meticulously documented financial demolition that echoes through the credit bureaus for years. To understand why this is a core pillar of the divorce now industry, we have to look at the immediate aftermath of the legal decree. Imagine Sarah, a registered nurse in Chicago in 2026. Before her divorce, she and her spouse shared a high-tier credit profile with a FICO score of 790. They had a joint mortgage at a 3% interest rate, 3 joint credit cards with high limits, and a clean history of on-time payments. Within 6 months of the divorce filing, Sarah's credit score has plummeted to 640. This drop was not caused by a lack of income or a sudden desire to be reckless. It was the mechanical result of how the U.S. credit system interacts with the legal reality of divorce. The divorce now industry thrives on the fact that while a judge can order a specific spouse to pay a debt, that court order does not override the original contract with the creditor. This is a critical distinction that leads to the first major economic footprint in the post-divorce era: the debt liability trap. In Sarah's case, the court ordered her ex-husband to pay off a joint credit card balance of $15,000. However, during the transition, he missed 2 payments. Because Sarah's name was still on the account, the credit bureaus marked her as 30 days and then 60 days delinquent. The industry surrounding credit repair and debt management knows this happens with mathematical certainty. In 2026, we see a surge in specialized credit monitoring services that specifically market to people in the middle of a divorce, charging monthly fees to alert them of rogue activity by their soon-to-be ex-spouse. This is a sub-industry that profits directly from the lack of coordination between family courts and financial institutions. Next, we must analyze the mortgage refinance trap, which is a massive profit center for the banking industry. Historical trends show that in a majority of U.S. divorces involving a family home, one spouse is required to buy out the other's equity. To do this, the staying spouse, let us say it is Sarah, must refinance the mortgage to remove the other spouse's name and pull out the cash for the buyout. In the current 2026 economic climate, where interest rates are significantly higher than the historic lows of the early 2020s, this is a financial disaster for the individual, but a windfall for lenders. Sarah is forced to trade her 3% interest rate for a 7 or 8% rate. This single transaction can increase her monthly housing costs by over $1,000, while simultaneously stripping the home of its equity. The mortgage industry has adapted to this by creating divorce mortgage specialists. These are loan officers who focus exclusively on navigating the complex underwriting requirements of a person whose income may now include alimony or child support, income that banks often view as high risk or unstable. This brings us to the rise of the predatory secondary lending market. When someone like Sarah sees their credit score drop into the low 600s, they are suddenly excluded from prime financial products. They cannot get a standard car loan or a low-interest credit card. Enter the fresh start lenders. These companies utilize aggressive marketing tactics, often sourcing data from public divorce filings to identify leads. They offer high-interest personal loans marketed as bridge loans to help newly single people get on their feet. These loans often carry APRs of 24 to 36%. In 2026, this has become a multi-billion-dollar niche. These lenders know that the newly single individual is often in a state of desperation, needing to furnish a new apartment, pay moving costs, or cover ongoing legal fees. By labeling these as transition loans, they capitalize on the immediate liquidity crisis that follows a household split. Furthermore, we must examine the rental market barrier. In major U.S. cities, the rental market has become increasingly automated. Landlords use third-party screening services that flag any applicant with a recent drop in credit score or a high debt-to-income ratio. For a newly divorced person, their debt-to-income ratio often looks terrible on paper because they are still tied to the old mortgage while trying to qualify for a new lease. This has given birth to the security deposit insurance industry. Instead of a traditional deposit, these companies allow tenants to pay a non-refundable monthly fee to insure the landlord against default. For the tenant, it is another recurring cost. For the industry, it is a high-margin product that targets a vulnerable demographic. Imagine Sarah trying to rent a 2-bedroom apartment in Chicago. Because of her credit hit, she is asked to pay 3 months of rent up front or use one of these insurance services. The Divorce Now industry ensures that every step of her new, single life is more expensive than her married life was. The economic footprint also extends to the insurance sector. This is often referred to as the singlehood tax. Historical trends and actuarial data suggest that married individuals are statistically safer bets for insurance companies. When Sarah updates her auto and homeowner's insurance to reflect her new status, she likely sees a 15 to 20% increase in premiums. Insurance companies argue this is based on risk assessment, but for the consumer, it is a direct penalty for the dissolution of the domestic unit. In 2026, we see specialized insurance brokers who claim to find the best rates for single parents. But even these specialized services are operating within a market that has fundamentally singlehood at a premium. We also have to discuss the gender wealth gap in credit. Case studies indicate that women often suffer more significant and longer-lasting credit damage following a divorce. This is frequently due to the fact that, historically, more joint accounts may have been managed by one spouse, or the woman may have taken a career hiatus for childcare, leading to a thinner credit file. The Divorce Now industry has responded not by fixing this gap, but by creating boutique financial products aimed at women in transition. These include high-fee credit cards with low limits designed to rebuild credit, and financial planning seminars that charge thousands of dollars to teach basic post-divorce solvency. The scale of this wreckage is vast because it is so granular. It is not just about the big house or the big car. It is about the thousands of small financial touchpoints that make up a life. Every time Sarah uses her credit card, every time she pays an insurance bill, and every time she logs into her bank account, she is interacting with a system that has been optimized to extract more value from her now that she is single. The Divorce Now industry is not a one-time fee paid to a lawyer. It is a permanent increase in the cost of living that persists long after the court case is closed. But even as these individuals struggle with credit scores and predatory loans, there is a much larger, more silent predator waiting in the wings. While the lawyers and lenders take their cut, the federal government and the IRS have their own set of rules for how assets are divided. If you think the credit drop is bad, wait until you see what happens when the tax man looks at a liquidated retirement account or a misfiled child contingency clause. In the next part, we will dive into the tax trap, the hidden IRS triggers that can turn a 50-50 split into a 40-60 nightmare. We will look at the specific 2026 tax code changes that have made the timing of your divorce filing more important than the settlement itself, and how a single word in a decree can cost you 6 figures in future penalties. The Internal Revenue Service is the silent, third party in every American divorce settlement, and in 2026, the tax code has become a labyrinth that the Divorce Now industry has expertly monetized. To understand the gravity of the tax trap, we must look at the case of David, a project manager in Denver. David and his spouse are finalizing their dissolution in the middle of this year. They have reached what they believe is a fair 50-50 split of their assets, including a primary residence, a 401k, and a brokerage account. However, because they are moving quickly through a streamlined Divorce Now portal, they are about to overlook a series of tax triggers that could cost them nearly 40% of their liquid net worth. The first major pillar of this tax-driven economy is the Qualified Domestic Relations Order, commonly known as a QDRO. While the Divorce Now industry markets the idea of a simple asset split, the mechanical reality of dividing a retirement account like a 401k or a 403b requires a specialized legal document that is entirely separate from the divorce decree. In 2026, a whole sub-industry of QDRO specialists has emerged, charging between $2,000 and $5,000 per document. If David tries to simply withdraw the funds and hand them to his ex-spouse, the IRS views that as a premature distribution. Historical trends show that thousands of Americans every year are hit with a 10% early withdrawal penalty plus ordinary income tax because they bypass the QDRO process. The divorce now industry relies on this complexity. By the time David realizes he needs this document, he is already thousands of dollars deep into a secondary professional service. Next, we must examine the capital gains cliff specifically regarding the family home. In the United States, a married couple filing jointly can exclude up to $500,000 of gain from the sale of their primary residence. However, once the divorce decree is signed and their status changes to single, that exclusion drops to $250,000. Imagine if David and his spouse own a home that has appreciated significantly since they bought it a decade ago. If they sell the house as part of the divorce now process after the decree is finalized, they may suddenly find themselves responsible for capital gains tax on $250,000 of profit that would have been tax-free just weeks prior. The real estate arm of the divorce industry often pushes for quick sales without coordinating with tax professionals, leading to potential outcomes where a large portion of the home equity is diverted directly to the Treasury. Then there is the hidden basis trap. This is where the divorce now industry often fails the consumer by focusing on current market value rather than future tax liability. Let us look at David's brokerage account. He agrees to give his spouse $200,000 in cash, while he keeps $200,000 worth of stock in a high-growth tech company. On the surface, this is an equal split. However, David's stock has a very low-cost basis. It was purchased years ago for only $50,000. When David eventually sells those shares to fund his new life, he will owe taxes on $150,000 of gain. His spouse, meanwhile, has $200,000 in tax-free cash. The divorce now professionals, the mediators and the fast-track lawyers, rarely perform the net-net analysis required to account for this. This creates a massive economic imbalance that does not manifest until years later, long after the professionals have collected their fees. We must also address the 2026 reality of alimony and the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act ripple effects. Since the tax overhaul, alimony is no longer deductible for the payer and is not counted as taxable income for the recipient at the federal level. This has fundamentally changed the economics of the divorce now industry. In the past, the tax deduction acted as a subsidy that made higher alimony payments more palatable for the higher earner. Now, every dollar David pays in alimony is a post-tax dollar. This has led to a surge in demand for forensic accountants who specialize in lifestyle analysis. These experts charge $600 an hour to prove that a spouse needs more or less support, knowing that there is no longer a tax cushion to soften the blow. The industry has effectively replaced a tax deduction with a high-priced professional service. Furthermore, the battle over the child tax credit and the head of household filing status is a significant driver of legal fees in 2026. Under the current tax code, only one parent can claim the child as a dependent and benefit from the associated credits and the more favorable head of household tax brackets. In a divorce now scenario where speed is prioritized over detail, this is often left ambiguous. This ambiguity leads to a phenomenon known as the double claim. When both David and his ex-spouse claim the child on their respective tax returns, the IRS triggers an automatic audit for both parties. This audit then requires the hiring of tax attorneys and CPA representation, creating a post-divorce revenue stream for the financial services sector. Historical trends indicate that these disputes often cost more in professional fees than the value of the tax credit itself. Another overlooked economic footprint is the Section 72T distribution. For those under the age of 59 and a half, a divorce is one of the few times they can access retirement funds without the 10% penalty, provided it is done strictly through a QDRO. However, the divorce now industry often fails to explain that while the penalty is waived, the income tax is not. If David's spouse receives $100,000 from his 401k and uses it to buy a new car and pay off debt, she will be hit with a massive tax bill the following April. Because no taxes were withheld at the time of the transfer, she may find herself in a position where she owes $30,000 to the IRS with no remaining liquid assets to pay it. This creates a cycle of tax debt that can haunt a newly single person for a decade. The divorce now industry also profits from the complexity of carry-forward losses. If David and his spouse had a business that lost money or stocks that were sold at a loss in previous years, those carry-forward losses are an asset. In a fast-paced divorce, these are often forgotten. A savvy professional would value those losses because they offset future income, but in the divorce now model, they are frequently left on the table. This is essentially leaving free money for the government, further depleting the family's wealth. As we look at these layers of tax implications, it becomes clear that the divorce now industry is not just a legal machine. It is a financial filtration system. It filters wealth out of the household through professional fees, and then the tax code filters a second layer out through avoidable penalties and missed exclusions. The lack of integration between legal advice and tax planning is not a bug of the system. It is a feature that ensures a constant flow of work for accountants, auditors, and specialized consultants. But the financial erosion does not stop with the IRS. Beyond the taxman, there is a whole ecosystem of everyday industries that have recalibrated their pricing models to target the single-income household that emerges from a divorce. From the way auto manufacturers design their lease programs to the way grocery stores package their goods, the singlehood tax is real and it is pervasive. In the next part, we will explore the retail and lifestyle tax, how the American consumer economy is specifically rigged against the newly single, and the shocking data on the cost of living increase for a person moving from a shared household to a solo existence. We will look at the 2026 data on the pink tax and the blue tax in the context of divorce, and how your grocery bill might be the most consistent reminder of your legal decree. The fundamental economic unit of the United States has historically been the household, a structure designed to maximize efficiency through shared resources. When the divorce now industry facilitates the rapid dissolution of this unit, it triggers an immediate and permanent collapse of these economies of scale. To see this in action, imagine Michael, a 42-year-old project manager living in Phoenix, Arizona, in 2026. Michael has just finalized his divorce through a streamlined digital platform. He moves out of the 4-bedroom family home and into a 2-bedroom apartment. On paper, he is responsible for half of what he was before. In reality, Michael is about to encounter the retail and lifestyle tax, a phenomenon where the cost of living as a single individual is significantly higher per capita than living as part of a couple. The first wall Michael hits is the utility floor. In a shared household, the cost of high-speed internet, trash collection, and basic security systems is a fixed cost. Whether 2 people or 1 person lives in the home, the fiber optic line costs the same $80 a month. By moving to his own apartment, Michael's per-person cost for internet has doubled from $40 to $80. This trend repeats across every utility. In 2026, energy prices in Phoenix have seen historical trends of upward volatility. Cooling a 2-bedroom apartment to a comfortable 72 degrees in a desert summer does not cost 50% of what it costs to cool a 4-bedroom house. It often costs 70 to 80% because the cooling system must run at a baseline level regardless of occupancy. This is the efficiency loss of the single-person economy. Michael is now paying a premium for every kilowatt of power and every gallon of water he consumes compared to his married peers. We then look at the grocery trap. The American food supply chain is optimized for the family unit. When Michael enters a grocery store in 2026, he is faced with the reality of per-ounce pricing. Case studies on consumer behavior show that single-person households pay an average of 15 to 25% more for food because they cannot take advantage of bulk pricing. A gallon of milk may cost $4, while a half-gallon costs $3. By buying the smaller size to avoid waste, Michael is paying a 50% markup per ounce. This is the singlehood tax at the checkout counter. Furthermore, the divorce now industry has paved the way for the rise of the individual convenience economy. Because Michael is now balancing a full-time job with the logistical hurdles of solo parenting or simply managing a household alone, he is more likely to rely on meal kits and pre-prepared foods. In 2026, these services have become a multi-billion-dollar sector that specifically targets the newly single demographic. They offer the illusion of saving time, but the economic outcome is a significant increase in the monthly food budget compared to the cost of home-cooked, bulk-purchased family meals. Beyond the kitchen, we must examine the fragmentation of the subscription economy. In the modern American landscape, subscriptions for streaming services, gym memberships, and retail delivery clubs are foundational. Most of these services offer family plans that provide a deep discount for multiple users. Upon his divorce, Michael loses access to the family accounts. He must now open his own Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Costco memberships. While a family plan might have cost $30 for 4 people, Michael now pays $20 for himself. His per-person cost for digital entertainment and retail access has tripled. Historical trends indicate that as more Americans live in single-person households, These companies are shifting away from generous family sharing models toward individual user pricing, effectively capturing more revenue from the growing demographic of the divorced and single. Now, let us analyze the specific gendered economic footprints, known as the pink tax and the blue tax, in the context of the divorce now industry. For women navigating a post-divorce world in 2026, the pink tax often manifests in the professional re-entry and maintenance sector. Case studies show that women are more frequently marketed high-cost career coaching, specialized wardrobe updates for the workforce, and boutique wellness services under the guise of the post-divorce glow-up. The industry profits from the pressure on women to present a specific image as they re-enter the dating market or compete for higher-paying roles to offset their loss of household income. This is a targeted extraction of wealth that treats the female divorcee as a primary consumer of self-improvement products. Conversely, the blue tax hits men like Michael in the domestic service sector. Historical trends suggest that many men in traditional household structures rely on a division of labor where their spouse manages the majority of domestic logistics, including cleaning, laundry, and grocery shopping. Once single, the divorce now industry directs these men toward outsourced domesticity. Michael finds himself paying for a bi-weekly cleaning service, a wash and fold laundry subscription, and premium delivery fees. In 2026, these services are not seen as luxuries but as necessary infrastructure for the single professional man. The economic footprint of these services can easily exceed $500 a month, a cost that was previously internalized within the marriage. The automotive and insurance industries also play a massive role in this lifestyle tax. In 2026, Michael's car insurance premium spikes. Actuarial data used by major U.S. insurers indicates that single men, particularly those who are recently divorced, are statistically higher risk drivers than married men. By losing his multi-car discount and his married status discount, Michael's insurance costs increase by 20%, even if his driving record remains spotless. Additionally, the transition to two separate households necessitates a second vehicle if the couple previously shared one or lived in a walkable area. This leads to new auto loans, additional registration fees, and doubled maintenance costs. The travel and leisure industry further penalizes the single-person household through the single supplement. Imagine Michael wants to take a vacation to decompress after his legal proceedings. In 2026, the majority of cruise lines, tour operators, and resort packages are priced based on double occupancy. If Michael travels alone, he is often required to pay a 70 to 100% surcharge to cover the lost revenue of the second person. The industry is fundamentally rigged to favor the couple, leaving the single individual to subsidize the infrastructure of the hospitality sector. As we aggregate these costs, the utility floor, the grocery markup, the subscription fragmentation, the domestic service fees, and the insurance premiums, we see that the economic footprint of the divorce now industry extends into every transaction of daily life. For Michael, the cost of being Michael has increased by 30% without a corresponding increase in his quality of life. This is the hidden, ongoing alimony that the divorced person pays to the economy at large. The divorce now industry markets a clean break, but the retail and lifestyle sectors ensure that the financial ties to your former life are replaced by a new, more expensive dependency on the service economy. But there is an even more intimate layer to this economic story. While Michael is navigating the supermarket aisles and utility bills, his physical and mental health are being integrated into a different kind of industrial complex. The stress of the dissolution process and the shift to a solo lifestyle trigger a massive wave of spending in the healthcare and wellness sectors. In the next part, we will explore the medical and psychological footprint, how the pharmaceutical industry, the therapy market, and the billion-dollar wellness industrial complex have optimized their offerings for the post-divorce demographic. We will look at the 2026 data on prescription trends for the newly single, and how the body keeps the financial score of a broken marriage. When the body enters a state of chronic litigation and domestic upheaval, the physiological response is not a mere side effect. It is a primary driver of the American healthcare economy. In 2026, we are seeing an unprecedented integration between the legal dissolution process and the medical industrial complex. To visualize this, let us look at Amanda, a 38-year-old school administrator in Columbus, Ohio. Amanda utilized a Divorce Now digital platform to expedite her filing, hoping to save time and money. However, what the platform's algorithm did not account for was the biological tax of high-velocity stress. Within months of the separation, Amanda's body began to manifest the financial weight of her situation, leading her directly into a cycle of medical spending that historical trends now identify as the divorce health deficit. The first economic pillar of this deficit is the pharmaceutical surge. Data from 2026 indicates that individuals in the midst of a divorce are 3 times more likely to be prescribed new medications for anxiety, depression, and insomnia compared to their married or long-term single counterparts. In Amanda's case, the constant state of hypervigilance, worrying about asset division, child custody schedules, and her new solo financial reality, triggered a spike in cortisol that made sleep impossible. This led to a series of visits to her primary care physician and a subsequent cascade of prescriptions. We are seeing a massive footprint in the sales of selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors or SSRIs and benzodiazepines, specifically within the 35 to 55 age demographic. The pharmaceutical industry has optimized its marketing toward this transitionary period, recognizing that a divorce decree is often a gateway to a long-term relationship with maintenance medications. But the medication is only the beginning. The psychological footprint of the divorce now industry has birthed a specialized sector of the telehealth market. In 2026, the rise of specialized divorce therapy platforms has become a billion-dollar sub-industry. These platforms do not offer general counseling. They offer tactical emotional management. Amanda found herself paying $250 per session for a therapist who specialized in high-conflict co-parenting. Unlike traditional therapy, which might occur once a week, the intensity of the modern divorce often necessitates crisis mode sessions, sometimes multiple times a week. This shift from preventative mental health care to reactive, high-cost intervention represents a significant transfer of wealth from the individual to the tech-enabled healthcare sector. Furthermore, we must analyze the physical manifestation of stress-induced autoimmune and cardiovascular issues. Case studies from 2026 show that the 2 years following a divorce filing see a marked increase in diagnostic testing for stress-related physical ailments. Amanda began experiencing chronic migraines and joint pain, classic symptoms of systemic inflammation caused by prolonged exposure to the divorce process. This resulted in thousands of dollars in out-of-pocket costs for MRIs, blood panels, and specialist consultations. The Divorce Now industry markets a fast legal exit, but the body does not have a fast-forward button. The biological lingering of the conflict ensures that the healthcare industry remains a primary beneficiary of every broken marriage. This leads us to the wellness industrial complex, which has positioned itself as the premium solution for the post-divorce glow-up. This is an economy built on the idea of reclaiming one's identity through high-cost self-care. In 2026, we see a massive trend in divorce retreats, 3-day intensives that cost upwards of $5,000, promising emotional detoxification. Amanda, feeling depleted by the legal battle, was targeted by social media ads for these luxury wellness services. This is not just about a spa day. It is about medical-grade aesthetics, specialized supplementation, and biohacking tools designed to reverse the aging effects of a traumatic split. The economic footprint here is staggering, as newly single individuals seek to regain their market value in the dating and professional worlds through elective medical and wellness spending. We also have to consider the impact on workplace productivity, which is a hidden but massive part of the U.S. economic footprint. This is often described through the lens of presenteeism. Amanda was physically present at her job in Columbus, but the mental load of her divorce, managing legal emails, coordinating with her ex-husband, and dealing with health issues, reduced her productivity by an estimated 40%. In 2026, corporate America is beginning to quantify these losses. Historical trends suggest that the divorce of a single high-level employee can cost a company tens of thousands of dollars in lost efficiency and increased healthcare premiums. This has led to the emergence of divorce benefits as a corporate perk, where companies provide employees with access to legal and financial consultants to minimize the time they spend dealing with the Divorce Now industry during work hours. The medical footprint also extends into the pediatric sector. The children of the Divorce Now era are driving a surge in demand for child psychology and specialized educational support. In 2026, the cost of supporting a child through a household transition has become a standard line item in marital settlement agreements. Amanda had to find an additional $400 a month for her son's play therapy and a specialized tutor to help him manage the drop in his academic performance. This is another layer of the specialized service economy that thrives on the fragmentation of the family unit. The industry is designed to provide a professional solution for every emotional and developmental ripple caused by the split. What we are seeing is the total medicalization of the domestic crisis. Every stage of the process, from the initial filing to the final decree, is supported by a healthcare or wellness professional with a billable hour. The Divorce Now industry doesn't just dismantle a household. It creates a new, highly medicated, and therapy-dependent consumer. For someone like Amanda, the legal fees were just the entry price. The ongoing cost of maintaining her health and her children's well-being in the aftermath represents a permanent shift in her financial trajectory. The body indeed keeps the financial score, and in 2026, that score is overwhelmingly in favor of the medical and wellness conglomerates. As these individuals navigate the high costs of their physical and mental recovery, they often turn toward the one thing they believe will give them a fresh start: the labor market. But the professional footprint of a divorce is equally complex. The need for increased income to cover the singlehood tax and the health deficit often leads to a phenomenon known as the divorce career pivot. In the next part, we will explore the professional and career impact, how the Divorce Now industry forces a radical reshuffling of the American workforce. We will look at the 2026 data on career changes following a split, the rise of the side hustle economy for the newly single, and why your divorce might be the most significant factor in your next promotion or your next burnout. We will also examine the specific historical trends of how employers view the newly divorced and the hidden bias that could be costing you thousands in potential salary increases. The professional landscape of 2026 is not just a place for career advancement. For the newly single, it is the primary engine of financial survival in the wake of the Divorce Now industry. When the domestic unit collapses, the career often becomes the first victim of the fallout or the only lifeline available. To understand this professional footprint, let us look at James, a 45-year-old logistics manager in Charlotte, North Carolina. James has just emerged from a year-long legal battle that cost him $40,000 in professional fees and half of his liquid assets. Before the divorce, James was a steady, high-performing employee with his sights set on a director-level role. However, the economic reality of his new life has forced him into a phenomenon we now call the divorce career pivot. The first major driver of this pivot is the sudden, non-negotiable need for increased liquidity. In 2026, the cost of maintaining two separate households in a mid-sized American city has outpaced median wage growth. James quickly realized that his $95,000 salary, which felt comfortable when combined with his spouse's income, is now insufficient to cover a new mortgage, legal debt repayments, and child support. Historical trends show that divorced individuals are 50% more likely to seek a new job or a secondary income stream within the first 18 months of their decree. For James, this meant abandoning his long-term career path at a stable firm to jump to a high-pressure startup that offered a 20% salary bump but zero job security. This is a massive shift in the labor market. The Divorce Now industry effectively forces experienced workers into high-risk, high-reward roles to service the debt created by the dissolution process. We must also analyze the explosion of the divorce side hustle. In 2026, the gig economy has become the unofficial financing arm of the family court system. James found himself working 30 hours a month as a consultant for a rival logistics firm, an act that would have been unthinkable a year prior. He is not alone. Case studies from across the United States indicate a significant surge in professional-grade moonlighting among the newly divorced. These are not people driving for rideshare apps for extra gas money. These are white-collar professionals selling their specialized expertise on fractional work platforms specifically to pay off five-figure legal retainers. The economic footprint here is a massive increase in total hours worked per capita for the divorced demographic, leading to a hidden epidemic of professional burnout that ultimately impacts corporate productivity on a national scale. Furthermore, we have to address the employer bias and the productivity gap. While corporate HR departments in 2026 often tout support systems, the reality on the ground is different. James noticed a shift in how his senior leadership perceived him during the height of his litigation. Historical trends suggest that managers often subconsciously view a divorcing employee as a liability or a distraction. The time James spent in depositions, mediation sessions, and emergency calls with his attorney was time he was not focused on the supply chain. This resulted in him being passed over for a major project that would have led to a significant bonus. This is the invisible career tax of divorce, the loss of momentum. When you are in the Divorce Now cycle, you are not just losing money today. You are losing the potential outcomes of career progression that require consistent, high-level focus over several years. This leads us to the custody career conflict, a structural economic problem for the American workforce. In 2026, the push for 50-50 joint physical custody has become the default in many states. For James, This meant he could no longer take the late-night meetings or the cross-country travel that his logistics role previously demanded. He was forced to negotiate a flexible work arrangement that, while allowing him to be a present parent, effectively capped his earning potential. The divorce now industry markets the idea that you can have it all through efficient litigation, but the labor market is not always as flexible as a court order. We see a significant trend of men and women downshifting their careers into less demanding, lower-paying roles just to remain compliant with their custody schedules. This represents a massive de-skilling of the workforce, as highly talented individuals prioritize logistics over leadership. The professional footprint also extends into the retirement sector. In 2026, the data shows that divorced Americans are pushing their retirement dates back by an average of 5 to 8 years. When the 401k is split down the middle, the power of compound interest is fundamentally broken. James had to look at his retirement projections and realize that he could no longer retire at 62. He is now part of the working divorcee demographic, individuals in their late 60s and early 70s who remain in the workforce because they simply cannot afford to stop. This has a secondary effect on the economy by slowing down the promotion pipeline for young workers. The divorce now industry, by liquidating retirement assets today, is creating a labor stagnation issue for the next decade. We also see the rise of the divorce relocation economy. To find the higher wages necessary to cover their new expenses, many newly single professionals are forced to move to high cost of living hubs. However, this is often blocked by relocation clauses in custody agreements. James wanted to take a job in Atlanta that paid $30,000 more, but his ex-spouse exercised her right to block the children from moving out of North Carolina. This created a geographic lock-in, where James was trapped in a lower-paying market while facing higher-than-average expenses. This lack of labor mobility is a drag on the broader U.S. economy, preventing talent from moving to where it is most needed because of the legal tethers of a dissolved marriage. There is also a specialized sector of the education and retraining market that caters specifically to this demographic. In 2026, we see a boom in accelerated degree programs and professional certifications marketed to stay-at-home parents re-entering the workforce after a divorce. These programs are often expensive and funded by high-interest student loans taken out at a time of extreme financial vulnerability. While these programs offer potential outcomes of career growth, they add another layer of debt to an already fragile financial situation. The education industry has recognized that the divorce decree is a powerful motivator for immediate, high-cost enrollment. What we are witnessing is the total reconfiguration of a person's professional identity to serve the needs of a legal process. James is no longer working for his family's future. He is working to maintain the status quo of two separate lives. The divorce now industry doesn't just take your money. It takes your career trajectory, your retirement security, and your professional focus. It turns the American worker into a high-output machine dedicated to servicing the professional fees and lifestyle increases of a singlehood economy. But the career and the money are only half the battle. As James and millions of others reshuffle their professional lives, they are also navigating a world where their social and community structures have been completely commodified. The friends you shared, the clubs you belong to, and even the way you meet new people have all been integrated into the Divorce Now ecosystem. In the next part, we will explore the social and community footprint, how the industry has monetized your social circle, and the rise of the specialized dating economy for the newly single. We will look at the 2026 data on the cost of rebuilding a social life, and how your personal network is being analyzed for its economic value in the wake of a split. We will dive into the billion-dollar world of post-divorce social engineering, and why your new friend group might be more expensive than your old one. The liquidation of social capital is perhaps the most overlooked line item in the Divorce Now industry's balance sheet. When a marriage dissolves, it is not just a contract between two people that ends. It is a complex web of mutual associations, shared memberships, and communal trust that is effectively shredded and sold back to the individuals at a premium. To see how this functions in the 2026 economy, let us look at Robert, a 50-year-old high-end real estate developer in Seattle. Robert spent 20 years building a life that was integrated into a specific social and professional ecosystem. His divorce, processed through a high-speed executive dissolution service, did more than just split his bank accounts. It triggered a total reset of his social infrastructure, each piece of which carried a significant price tag. The first economic pillar of this social footprint is the membership fragmentation tax. In many affluent U.S. circles, life is organized around joint memberships, country clubs, elite gym networks, and professional associations. Historical trends show that these organizations are rarely designed for the equitable division of access. In Robert's case, his club membership was tied to his status as a married head of household. Upon the filing of the decree, the club's bylaws required the non-primary member to resign and reapply as a single individual. This meant Robert's ex-spouse had to pay a new $30,000 initiation fee to maintain her social and professional network, while Robert saw his own dues increase because he no longer qualified for the family discount. The divorce now industry relies on this friction. We see a surge in specialized consultants who advise high-net-worth individuals on how to negotiate these bylaws during the settlement, adding another layer of professional fees to the process. Beyond formal clubs, there is the massive billion-dollar dating industrial complex for the newly single. In 2026, the dating market has become a highly segmented, AI-driven economy that specifically targets the post-divorce demographic. Robert, finding himself single for the first time in 2 decades, did not just download a free app. He was funneled into a premium ecosystem designed for his specific wealth bracket. We are talking about concierge matchmaking services that charge retainers of $15,000 to $50,000. These services offer potential outcomes like background-checked introductions and lifestyle compatibility scoring, marketed as a way to avoid the high-stakes financial risks of a second bad marriage. The industry capitalizes on the fear of another asset-stripping event. Case studies show that the average newly divorced professional in the United States spends over $5,000 in their first year on premium app subscriptions, specialized photography for their profiles, and dating coaches who charge $300 an hour to script their digital interactions. We must also analyze the social engineering and networking sector. In many ways, your social circle is a form of currency. When Robert and his spouse split, their shared friends were often forced to choose sides, or more commonly, they drifted away from both to avoid the awkwardness. This is the social capital gap. To bridge this, a new industry of social concierge services has emerged in 2026. These firms are hired to rebuild a person's social calendar from scratch. They curate invitations to gallery openings, charity galas, and exclusive dinner parties, essentially allowing someone like Robert to buy his way back into a high-functioning social life. This is not about friendship. It is about maintaining the professional and social visibility required to function in a high-stakes career. The economic footprint of these services is significant, as they move capital from individual savings into the event planning and luxury hospitality sectors. Then there is the retail of the fresh start. The divorce now industry has successfully commodified the act of starting over through the rise of the unregistry. In 2026, we see a massive trend where newly single individuals create digital wish lists for their new homes, similar to a wedding registry. While this might seem like a way to save money, it actually drives a surge in consumer spending. Robert had to furnish a 3-bedroom condo in downtown Seattle from scratch. Because he wanted to signal his new, successful single status, he did not shop at discount retailers. He was targeted by high-end interior design firms that offered divorce packages, curated furniture sets and decor designed to be delivered and installed in a single weekend. This is a high-margin business for the retail sector, as it exploits the need for an immediate psychological and physical reset. Furthermore, we must look at the community displacement tax. Many divorces in 2026 result in at least one spouse moving out of a highly desirable, high social capital neighborhood into a more affordable or transit-oriented area. When Robert moved from his suburban estate to an urban condo, he lost access to the informal economy of his old neighborhood. The shared carpools, the trusted local contractors, and the neighbor who watched his house for free. Every one of those informal, trust-based services had to be replaced by a formal, paid service. He now pays for a professional house sitter, a premium car service, and a concierge to manage his deliveries. This is the mechanical reality of moving from a high-trust social environment to an anonymous, service-based environment. The broader U.S. economy benefits from this shift, as it turns unpaid communal labor into taxable commercial transactions. The industry has also birthed the divorce influence economy. On platforms like YouTube and TikTok, we see a massive rise in creators who document their post-divorce lives, monetizing their transition through brand deals with home goods, fashion, and wellness companies. This creates a feedback loop where the newly single are constantly bombarded with images of what a successful single life should look like, driving further spending on elective lifestyle upgrades. Historical trends indicate that the first 24 months after a divorce are a period of peak consumer volatility, where brand loyalty is often reset. Companies in every sector, from automotive to travel, have recognized this and are utilizing specialized data sets to target individuals whose life event status has recently changed to single. We must also consider the impact on charitable and community giving. Case studies suggest that when a high net worth household splits, their total charitable output often decreases for several years as they focus on rebuilding their individual reserves. This has a direct economic impact on the nonprofit sector and the social safety nets they provide. The divorce now industry, by prioritizing the rapid liquidation of assets to cover legal and professional fees, effectively diverts money away from community investment and into the pockets of the professional service class. As Robert navigates this expensive new world, he is beginning to realize that his social life is no longer a source of support, but a series of recurring subscriptions and service fees. Every dinner, every date, and every gym session is a transaction designed to maintain a lifestyle that was previously supported by the shared economy of his marriage. The divorce now industry markets freedom, but it delivers a new kind of dependency. A dependency on a professionalized social structure that requires constant financial maintenance. But as Robert looks at the costs of his own social rebuilding, he is forced to face an even more sobering reality. The economic footprint of his divorce is not limited to his own lifetime or his own bank account. The most profound and long-lasting financial shift is the one occurring in the lives of his children. While the parents are busy rebuilding their social and professional worlds, the next generation is being prepared for an entirely different economic future. In the next part, we will explore the intergenerational wealth and educational footprint, how the divorce now industry fundamentally alters the financial trajectory of the children. We will look at the 2026 data on the cost of the two-household education, the collapse of the generational inheritance, and how the split of a family today is creating a new class of financially precarious adults 30 years from now. We will examine the specific historical trends of the inheritance gap and why the divorce now industry might be the single biggest threat to the American middle-class legacy. The impact of the divorce now industry is not a temporary dip in a family's balance sheet. It is a fundamental redirection of generational wealth that alters the economic destiny of the next generation. To understand how the 2026 landscape has turned the dissolution of a marriage into a generational wealth stripping event, let us return to Robert and his two children, Sophie and Leo. Before the divorce, the financial plan for the children was a unified, long-term strategy centered on the family's primary residence and a robust college savings plan. However, the mechanical speed of a modern, efficient divorce often treats these long-term assets as short-term bargaining chips, leading to what economists now call the inheritance gap. The first major blow to Sophie and Leo's financial future occurs in the 529 college savings plan. In 2026, the cost of a 4-year degree at a top-tier U.S. university has surged past $400,000. Historically, 529 plans were treated as protected sanctuaries for a child's education. But in the divorce now era, these accounts are increasingly being utilized as liquidity offsets. During the negotiation phase, Robert and his spouse might agree that one parent keeps the 529 account, while the other takes a larger share of the liquid cash or the equity in the home. On paper, the value remains with the children, but the administrative control shifts to a single individual who may face future financial pressures. Potential outcomes for these accounts show that in 20% of contested divorces, 529 funds are eventually rated to cover legal fees or lifestyle maintenance costs for the struggling parent. This is a direct extraction of a child's future earning potential to service the immediate needs of the divorce now industry. Furthermore, we must look at the forced liquidation of the family home. In the United States, the primary vehicle for middle-class wealth transfer is residential real estate. Historically, children inherited the family home or the proceeds from its eventual sale after decades of appreciation. However, the divorce now model frequently mandates an immediate sale to facilitate a clean break and the payment of professional retainers. In 2026, when Robert is forced to sell the family's Seattle estate to split the equity, he is not just selling a house. He is terminating a 20-year investment cycle prematurely. By liquidating in 2026 rather than holding the asset until 2046, the family loses out on 2 decades of compounded appreciation. Sophie and Leo will not inherit a paid-off suburban home. They will inherit half of the remaining cash after capital gains taxes, agent commissions, and relocation costs have eaten into the equity. This is the permanent shrinking of the American inheritance. Next, we must analyze the life insurance anchor. In 2026, U.S. family courts almost universally mandate that the child support paying parent maintain a substantial life insurance policy to secure future payments. For Robert, this is not a choice. It is a court-ordered expense. Because Robert is 50 years old and the stress of the divorce has impacted his health markers, his premiums are at a historical high. He is paying thousands of dollars a year into a term policy that provides no cash value and no benefit to him during his lifetime. This is capital that is diverted away from his retirement or his children's trust funds and into the hands of the insurance industry. The Divorce Now process creates a massive, recurring revenue stream for insurers by turning private support obligations into high-premium commercial products. The economic footprint also extends to the double childhood tax. This is the cost of maintaining two separate, fully functional lives for the children. Sophie and Leo now require 2 sets of everything: 2 laptops, 2 wardrobes, 2 sets of sports equipment, and even duplicate sets of specialized medical devices. In 2026, as technology and extracurricular costs have skyrocketed, this duplication represents a significant drain on the parents' disposable income. Money that could have been invested in a diversified portfolio is instead spent on a second bedroom's worth of consumer goods. Case studies indicate that children of divorce live in households with 30% less aggregate investable income than children in unified households, even when the pre-divorce income remains the same. This reduction in the household's ability to save creates a ripple effect, as these children eventually enter adulthood with less of a financial safety net and a higher likelihood of taking on student loan debt. This brings us to the student loan correlation. Historical trends in 2026 show a direct link between the dissolution of a high net worth marriage and the increased reliance on student loans for the next generation. Because the parents' liquid assets were depleted by the Divorce Now industry's fees and the increased cost of living in 2 households, Sophie is forced to take out federal and private loans to bridge the gap for her tuition. While her parents were once on track to pay for her education in full, the $50,000 legal battle and the loss of economies of scale have made that impossible. Sophie enters the workforce with a $100,000 debt burden that her married peers do not have. This debt delays her ability to buy her own home, start a business, or begin her own family, effectively pushing the economic consequences of her parents' divorce 30 years into the future. We also have to discuss the blended family dilution. In the 2026 economy, remarriage is a common sequel to the Divorce Now process. When Robert eventually remarries, his estate planning becomes exponentially more complex. His assets, which were once destined solely for Sophie and Leo, may now be split with a new spouse and potentially stepchildren. This is the fragmentation of the legacy. The Divorce Now industry facilitates the quick exit that allows for rapid repartnering. But the financial outcome is often a legal battle over inheritance decades later. The legal fees generated by contested estates in blended families are a growing sector of the legal market, representing the final, posthumous collection by the professional service class. Finally, we must look at the psychological economic feedback loop. Children who grow up in the shadow of a high-friction, high-cost divorce often develop a different relationship with risk and investment. Case studies show that these individuals may be more risk-averse or, conversely, more prone to financial instability themselves. This intangible impact on their human capital is a hidden part of the Divorce Now footprint. The industry markets a solution for the parents, but it provides no mitigation for the children's lost economic security. The family unit, once a fortress of stability and wealth accumulation, is replaced by a transactional framework that prioritizes the billable hours of today over the legacies of tomorrow. As we look at the hollowed-out savings accounts, the liquidated real estate, and the burdened futures of children like Sophie and Leo, we have to ask, who is this system truly serving? The Divorce Now industry has successfully framed the end of a marriage as a personal liberation, but the data suggests it is a massive, systemic wealth transfer from the American family to a specialized professional class. The footprint is not just a mark on a map. It is a deep structural trench that separates the unified households of the past from the fragmented, high-cost existence of the future. In the final part of this masterclass, we are going to pull all these threads together. We will look at the global implications of the American Divorce Now model and how other nations are watching this $50 billion experiment. We will provide a step-by-step analysis of the systemic winners and losers of this industry and ask the ultimate question: is there a way to exit a marriage without entering a financial vacuum? In the conclusion of our deep dive, we reveal the final staggering total of the economic footprint and the one thing the Divorce Now industry hopes you never calculate. To reach the final tally of this $50 billion machine, we have to look at the cumulative velocity of every transaction we have discussed over the last 9 parts of this masterclass. In 2026, the economic footprint of the divorce now industry is no longer just a collection of individual financial tragedies. It has become a systemic redistribution of American middle-class wealth into the professional and service sectors. When we add the $50 billion baseline to the secondary and tertiary impacts, the real estate friction, the tax penalties, the healthcare surges, and the loss of generational compounding, we are looking at a total economic shift that exceeds $100 billion annually. This is the staggering reality of the industrialization of dissolution in the United States. To see the final outcome of this process, imagine Robert 5 years from today, in the year 2031. Robert has successfully navigated the divorce now ecosystem. He has paid his legal retainers, sold the family home, settled his tax debts, and rebuilt his social circle through premium matchmaking services. On the surface, Robert appears to be a success story of the modern, efficient divorce model. He lives in a high-end condo. His career has pivoted into a higher-paying executive role to cover his new expenses, and his children are in college. However, when Robert sits down to calculate his net worth compared to the historical trends of unified households in his income bracket, the math tells a different story. Robert's net worth is approximately 60% of what it would have been had the household remained a single economic unit. The missing 40% did not vanish into thin air. It was harvested piece by piece by the divorce now industry. The first group of systemic winners in this 2026 landscape is the legal tech conglomerate. In the past, divorce was a local fragmented business. Today, it is a centralized, data-driven industry. Companies that provide SaaS platforms for document automation, co-parenting communication, and asset tracking are the new titans of the family court system. These platforms have not lowered the cost of divorce. They have increased the volume and the billable complexity. By making it easier to file and track every minute disagreement, they have created a high-velocity environment where litigation is constant and incremental. These tech firms are the silent winners, collecting recurring subscription fees and transaction percentages from millions of Americans every single day. The second group of winners is the specialized financial sector. From the forensic accountants who charge $500 an hour to the specialized lenders offering high-interest bridge loans to the newly single, the financial services industry has found its most profitable niche in the breakdown of the family. Historical trends indicate that a person in the midst of a divorce is the ideal consumer. They are in a state of high-stakes transition, they are often making decisions under extreme emotional pressure, and they are frequently forced to liquidate long-term assets for short-term liquidity. The industry has optimized its offerings to extract maximum value during this window of vulnerability. The third and perhaps most overlooked winner is the federal treasury. Through the loss of joint filing status, the reduction of capital gains exclusions on home sales, and the tax triggers associated with retirement distributions, the U.S. government sees a significant revenue bump from every divorce filing. In 2026, the tax code acts as a mechanical filter that captures a portion of every asset as it moves from a joint account to an individual one. This is the silent tax that no Divorce Now marketing campaign ever mentions, but it remains one of the most consistent economic outcomes of the process. But what about the systemic losers? Beyond the individual, the greatest loser is the concept of generational wealth. We are witnessing the first era in American history where the middle-class legacy is being actively liquidated to service the professional fees of the present. When Robert sold his home and split his 401k, he broke the chain of compounding that was intended for Sophie and Leo. The divorce now industry thrives on the present value of assets, ignoring the future value lost to the next generation. This creates a more precarious workforce, individuals like Sophie who enter adulthood with more debt and less of a family safety net, making them more dependent on the very financial systems that profited from her parents' split. There is also a profound global implication to the American model. In 2026, other nations are observing the U.S. divorce now industry as a cautionary tale of extreme commodification. In many European and Asian jurisdictions, the legal system is designed to minimize the economic footprint of a divorce through administrative processing and fixed fee structures. The U.S. model, by contrast, is a market-based system where conflict is monetized. This makes the American economy more dynamic in the professional services sector, but it leaves the individual household more fragile. This fragility has long-term historical trends associated with lower national savings rates and higher reliance on government social programs in old age. Now, we must reveal the one thing the divorce now industry hopes you never calculate: the compounded lifetime loss. This is the calculation that goes beyond the $50,000 legal bill. Imagine if the money Robert spent on his divorce, the $200,000 in fees, taxes, and lifestyle inflation, had remained invested in a diversified index fund. At a conservative 7% annual return, that $200,000 would have grown to over $1.5 million by the time Robert reached age 75. The true cost of Robert's divorce is not the check he wrote in 2026. It is the $1.5 million hole in his terminal wealth. This is the hidden math of the industry. They want you to focus on the immediate cost of freedom, while they ignore the massive opportunity cost of your future. The Divorce Now industry markets itself as a service of liberation and efficiency. They provide the tools to exit a contract that is no longer working. But as we have seen through this deep dive, that exit comes at a price that most Americans are never fully briefed on. It is a system designed to dismantle the most efficient economic unit in human history, the household, and replace it with a series of high-cost, individual dependencies. From the way your credit is scored to the way your groceries are priced to the way your children will pay for college, the footprint of this industry is permanent and pervasive. As we conclude this deep dive masterclass, the question is no longer whether the divorce industry has a massive economic footprint. The data proves that it does. The question is how the American consumer will respond to an industry that has turned their most personal crisis into its most profitable product. We have looked at the lawyers, the lenders, the tech giants, and the tax traps. We have seen how the body and the career keep the score. We have analyzed the loss of social and generational capital. This is the machine as it exists in 2026. But even as this machine continues to hum, a new economic force is beginning to emerge. In response to the high-cost reality of the Divorce Now world, we are seeing the rise of the premarital economy, a massive shift in how Americans are structuring their lives before they even say, "I do." In our next series, we will explore the billion-dollar prenup, how the 2026 economy is being reshaped by the fear of dissolution, the rise of lifestyle clauses, and the new industry of relationship insurance. We will dive into why the most important financial decision of your life is no longer who you marry, but how you plan for the possibility that you won't stay that way. The economic story of the American family is changing, and the next chapter is even more controversial than the last.